So, Executive Order 9066 really is one of the many dark periods of our history where it's been often overlooked until very recently. We like to pretend it didn't happen or that what was happening in Germany was so horrific and it couldn't possibly be imagined anywhere else. But really, there's a lot of parallels between the Nazis and what's happening in the United States. Really, the only difference is we're not burning people in ovens through mass murder, but we're stopping short of mass murder, but there's a lot of other similarities. And people may argue that, well, yeah, but they didn't mass murder, so like, was it really that bad? Well, I mean, yes. If somebody took your entire livelihood and your life and said you can't live here anymore, you'd probably have an opinion about that, right? So, Japanese Americans are incarcerated and they are told to take their stuff and go to a train station and they'll be relocated. And in the meantime, they can sell their business if they're lucky enough. They can give it to a white family who will look over the business until they return, usually for a fee, or their stuff is taken by the government. Meanwhile, the Japanese Americans are sent to train stations and bus stations along the coast of California in their different towns and cities, waiting to be resettled. But the camps aren't built yet. So the first resettlement that most Japanese Americans face is resettlement at horse stables. And the most famous is probably the Santa Anita racetrack, which is the first stop for Californian Japanese Americans. This is the largest West Coast assembly center. There are 18,000 Japanese Americans imprisoned in there. And Santa Anita is a temporary camp, but it's temporary because the permanent ones aren't built yet. Once the permanent ones are built, they start to push past Santa Anita. And the difference between a temporary camp and a permanent camp is that the permanent camp has barracks built in it. It has buildings, whereas the temporary camp at Santa Anita is literally horse stables painted white. And there's still hay, there's still horse stalls. Like, there's not any real structure because it was built for horses and for animals. And so the permanent camps, once they are structured, are contained. Obviously, it's a camp, right? They are contained within a certain radius or a certain area. They are surrounded by barbed wire, guard towers, armed guards, and searchlights. So if you're telling people that this is a resettlement and that it's got nothing to do with, them being Japanese American, that's not the message that this camp is giving them. You are imprisoning people. If you can't leave under threat of death because you've been an armed guard, if you need permission to leave, you are not free. You are imprisoned. And the U.S. has imprisoned the Japanese American people. And they don't always imprison them together. A lot of men are taken from their families because men are considered a bigger threat. A lot of them are held in different locations than the rest of their family. Additionally, most people are relocated to areas far away from California. We're talking the Midwest and the south of the United States. This is not California. The climate is different. The lifestyle is different. They are forced to adapt to new weather patterns, new climate. Maybe they don't even have clothes that are appropriate for this type of weather. And they're also trying to rectify and reconcile the trauma of being forced from their homes and their families, all while being citizens of the United States. So this period lasts until I think they stop officially rounding up people in 1944. I don't think they closed the camps until the end of the war, though. Not everybody goes willingly, obviously. And one man at least sues the U.S. government. His name is Fred Korematsu. He says, I am absolutely not going. I am not registering. I am not complying with this order. This is a violation of my 14th Amendment rights. And the Supreme Court hears the argument and decide in the end that while Fred Korematsu is a U.S. citizen, the government has the right in times of war or when it could be a threat to the nation, that the government has a constitutional right to remove citizens and hold them in captivity. I do not think this ruling has ever been overturned. So I mean, we'd really have to double check this, but as far as I know, Korematsu versus the United States is still on the books as the precedent for whether or not a president can pass an order that imprisons citizens of the United States. And I believe the answer is still that it is constitutional as long as it is proven that it is a threat to national safety. That should be a concern. Most Japanese Americans are not working for the Japanese. Very few of them are. There may not be any. I'm sure there are, there is like cases of like, I think his name is Bunny Ono, where he does join the Japanese military, I believe. If you watch the PBS series Asian American Experience, there is a whole episode about the Japanese incarceration and Buddy Ono and his family. But most Japanese Americans are not supportive of the Japanese government. A lot of them, again, they don't relate to Japan as anything more than like their ancestral land. Their country is America. They are American. They're not working with the Japanese. They would rather help fight with the Americans, but they're not given that opportunity. And Fred Korematsu himself is sent to a camp. Again, I'm not sure officially when they closed the camps. I think might be 1944, might be 1945. I don't actually have that fact in front of me. The U.S. government never officially really does anything or acknowledges this until 1993, when we do apologize for our actions. But apologies only go so far, and the Japanese Americans are just another long line of people who have met a fate by the U.S. government that the U.S. government later says, our bad. Sorry, we shouldn't have done that, which really doesn't change anything. So that is, in a very brief nutshell, Japanese American incarceration, and we are almost to the end of Unit 7. So we are just going to wrap up the war and the end of Unit 7 with the surprise bombing of Japan, and we will be done. So I will see you guys next time.